Shortly after 10 a.m. Gaza time, this is the Reuters news agency live shot, filmed from high up on Khan Yunis's Nasser Hospital. Suddenly the image freezes, the sound drops. And this is why an Israeli strike on the building, witnesses say by a suicide drone, has killed the Reuters cameraman Hussam al-Masri. Chaos as the injured are brought inside the hospital, which has once again been targeted. Outside, more journalists and emergency workers are scrambling up the stairs to the site of the blast, just below the roof. One man lifts up the equipment al-Masri was using. "Journalist," he shouts. These images shot by another Reuters cameraman, injured when the second strike comes in. This time, a tank shell. The same moment at the hospital's main entrance. This man, injured in the leg, scrambling to safety. And again from outside via the live broadcast of Al Ghad television. Emergency crews clearly visible, then obscured by smoke and debris in the aftermath. 4 journalists and at least 1 emergency worker were killed in this second strike. Both targeted a part of the building often used by media, who frequently base themselves at Gaza's hospitals for the stories and for the relative, if at these moments, spurious sense of safety they can offer.
All of the journalists who report from that corner of the hospital work for international media outlets, which means the Israeli army has complete knowledge of who is there and when, yet they still decided to strike.
Among the journalists killed were the Reuters cameraman Hussam al-Masri, Mohammed Salama, who worked for Al Jazeera and Middle East Eye, Ahmed Abu Aziz, who also worked for Middle East Eye, and Mariam Daka, a freelancer who worked mainly for the Associated Press. 33-year-old Daka was a single mother of a young boy who'd been working recently on child malnutrition and had provided images for this program. Her cousin says she told Mariam not to climb the stairs.
She had a son, Gaith. He's in the UAE with his family. She sent him as soon as the war started. She was waiting for it to end so she could see him again.
Moz Abu Taha, the 5th journalist killed, remembered today by the hospital's head of pediatrics.
When I heard about Mu'adh, I cried like a child about him. Mu'adh is a friend. He's innocent. He never talk about politics. He never talk about something. He's just document the starvation and malnutrition.
The Israeli military said it would investigate the circumstances, but blamed Hamas for hiding among civilians.
As always, we will present our findings as transparently as possible. We regret any harm to uninvolved individuals and are committed to continue fighting Hamas while taking all the necessary precautions.
Earlier this month in Gaza City, Israel deliberately killed Al Jazeera correspondent Anas al-Sharif in the grounds of Al-Shifa Hospital, along with 4 of his colleagues, calling Sharif a Hamas terrorist, an accusation denied by the network. The Committee to Protect Journalists says nearly 200 have now been killed since the start of the war.
1 journalist on the first strike, and then 8 minutes later, when more colleagues, more aid workers are coming to rescue and to help, and then you target the second time, then I think it's also, again, as I was saying, raise the question and lift the doubt about targeting specifically journalists.
This morning's strike has prompted further international condemnation, even as Israel continues to build up forces for its planned push into Gaza City, home to around 1 million Palestinians. In Khan Yunis this afternoon, the focus on the horrors just happened, not those still to come, on grieving for the latest victims of this war, among them those risking their lives to report on it.
Well, earlier I spoke to Liz Allcock, head of humanitarian protection at Medical Aid for Palestinians. She was at the Nasser Hospital when the attack happened. I started by asking her what she saw.
I was with 5 colleagues in the intensive care unit at Nasser Hospital, visiting some of the patients that we were following up with, when there was a huge explosion very, very close by. And then very quickly, the emergency alarms went off. Everybody rushed into the surgical unit, which was adjacent to the room I was in. to be able to assist with the injured people and to retrieve people from under the rubble. So initially what we saw was a lot of healthcare staff covered in blood and in dust coming out of the unit, and others rushing in to be able to try and assist.
You might have seen the Israeli Defense Force said they carried out a strike in the area of Nasser Hospital and said they're conducting an initial inquiry. They regret any harm to uninvolved individuals and does not target journalists as such. As we know, 5 journalists were killed in that attack. What do you make of their statement?
Well, I think the evidence, as we've seen every day for the last 22 months, would really point to the contrary. We have seen a systematic, deliberate, targeted dismantling and destruction of the healthcare system in Gaza. First and foremost, we've seen the deliberate targeting of healthcare staff. And we've also seen the targeting recently of journalists. And I think it's no coincidence that there were 4 journalists who appear to have been targeted in this attack. And any calls of regret or expressions of regret by the Israelis, I would question their veracity.
In previous attacks on hospitals by the IDF, they've said that they've targeted Hamas. From what you've seen on hospital grounds, you've been there for a while. Have you seen any evidence of Hamas operating within this infrastructure?
I have not, and neither have any of my team. And we support a number of the units at Nasser, and we're there very, very frequently. The healthcare staff and other aid workers around Nasser Hospital are dedicated to be able to deliver life-saving services. So we're not going out asking people who they are or what they're doing. But if there were military activity, we wouldn't be operating there because it wouldn't be safe to be doing so. So I haven't seen it. And I think it's important to note that these health facilities in hospitals are legally protected. And therefore, any military activity needs to be enacted under international law and in line with the principles of proportionality and distinction. And I think clearly that isn't the case when we look at the number of civilian casualties that is rapidly increasing every day.
And Liz, I do wonder, strikes like this, what impact does that have on this hospital to deliver care? What impact has it had already?
Well, it's another devastating blow and another, I hate to say, nail in the coffin of the existence of the healthcare sector here in Gaza. And Nasser Hospital is the biggest critical care provider in the whole of the Gaza Strip. It's 300% over capacity. We have a lack of fuel, a lack of healthcare staff, a lack of resources, of medicines, of electricity, of sanitation equipment to clean the hospitals. And so yet another targeted attack means that surgical unit can't be used. The healthcare staff that have been killed cannot operate. And the resolve of people to go back to work every day is still there. But you're taking your life into your hands every single day. And I know healthcare staff say goodbye to their families every morning that they go to work, because the likelihood is more and more that they won't come home. And that has an extremely devastating effect on the morale of the healthcare staff and the wider population.
Liz Allcock, thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Benjamin Netanyahu also said tonight that Israel remained determined to free all the hostages and defeat Hamas. Let's get the latest from our foreign affairs correspondent, Secunda Kimani, who joins me now from Tel Aviv. Sec.
Well, Aisha, it's worth reiterating at the outset that the reason we're talking to you here, from here in Israel and not from Gaza, where we know and we feel that we should be alongside those Palestinian journalists that we've been hearing about, is because Israel does not allow independent access to Gaza for foreign journalists. And so we, like the rest of the world, are dependent on their images for an insight into the suffering there. Prime Minister Netanyahu, as you said, has described today as a tragic mishap and said that the Israeli state deeply regrets the killing of these journalists. But Israeli forces have repeatedly killed throughout this war journalists in Gaza at really an unprecedented rate. Now, the focus of Israel's latest offensive right now is not in the south of the territory where this incident took place, but around Gaza City. Its outskirts are currently being pummeled, including by robotic vehicles laden with explosives. The killings of these journalists today, I think, will add to international calls for Israel to pull back from its stated aim of fully taking control of Gaza City. Certainly, it's something that most Israelis do not want to see happen. They want to see a hostage deal negotiated instead, and another large day of protests is scheduled for tomorrow. But none of this seems to be having much of an impact on Prime Minister Netanyahu. The one man who does wield influence over him, President Trump, he said he's not happy with the killing of these journalists. At the same time, in recent weeks, he's made clear that he's standing firmly beside the Israeli leader.
Sek, thank you very much. Secunda Kamani in Tel Aviv there.